Hello, I'm Debs Kay. Thanks so much for joining me this week and welcome to my little studio. This is Kit Kat. She's one sometimes you might hear me in when I'm making my videos. She comes and causes mischief sometimes. So she thought she'd come and say hello today. Alright, so today we're going to go and have a little bit of fun in the snow. Thought we'd stay with the snowy theme and we're going to go and paint this little scene here. Happy days. Just love this little nostalgic scene of a couple of kids on a tea tray, going down a hill. Took me back to being a kid myself, so it's a nice fun little painting to do. So let's have a little look at the colours I chose and let's get painting. So here is what I used to create this little painting here. As you can see, I've got a selection of, just a small selection of pastels there, some from my darks right through to my lightest lights. And then I've got a few pastel pencils there. Now, my little painting is only an 8x10, it's quite tiny in all those details. So I found the pastel pencils really helpful in this case. But obviously you can use normal pastels. What I would suggest is maybe make unless you're very adept with your pastel, where it goes and things, I suggest making your painting maybe a little bit larger. Or bit more painterly, whichever you prefer. And as you can see, I've got a couple of inks there. Now I just toned my paper ever so slightly just to give it a little bit of background. I wanted to go for sort of more of an aqua-y feel to this snow. So I've got a cyan there and a shimmering gold. But you don't need to use inks, and you don't need to tone your paper at all if you don't want to. But that's what I used. So let's get painting. Okay, so as I mentioned, sort of like in the colours there, this is a little 8x10 and I've done it on Fisher 400 sanded paper, which I've just given a little tint to with those inks. Now you can do this straight on in with your pastels if you like, or you can use watercolours if you want to just give your paper a little tint to give you a head start. Now I found this wonderful reference photo that I took this from over on Paint My Photo from a lovely photographer, Freda Austin Nichols. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. I popped the link down below for you if you want to pop on over and download the photo for yourself and have a go at painting your happy day. I just love this photo, couple just having great fun, just sliding down. I've kept it pretty much as the photo is, although I've changed the colours up a little bit. I'm making mine a bit more aqua-y rather than pinky, and I've just pulled the figures into the scene just a little bit so I can get that little lad's backhand there. And I've also put them on a little slight tilt so it feels as if they're going down a little gentle slope. But I do want it sort of like fairly, feeling as if they're coming into the picture and then they're going to whiz off past. We're just getting a snapshot as they whiz through. So as you can see, the first thing I did was I put down my little sketch there, and I'm just going around with my pastel pencil just to indicate my absolute darkest areas. As you know, you can do this straight on in with pastels if you like, but I just feel a little bit more comfortable. And I've just literally sort of indicated to myself those very darkest areas like that back leg and things like that. And, where it's really darkest when I'm looking at the reference photo. And now you're seeing me, I popped a little bit of sort of mauvey greyed out mauve down at the bottom there, just to give myself a little indication of shadow. Just wanting to get some of the background in at the moment, just so that, they're not going to feel as if they're cut and pasted on the top and that they're going to be part of the scene. So just popping in a little bit there just to give me an indication. And I've used that sort of greyed out mauve at the bottom there for the shadows, and then sort of very pale lilac. It almost looks white on the screen, but it's not. It's a very pale lilac that I'm using for the other areas of the snow at the moment. And you're seeing me now coming in with my makeup sponge, which I really like. What I'd like to do is I'd like this really nice and soft and out of focus in the background, and I just find the makeup sponge is really nice just to get a nice smooth overall feel, but leaving some of that sort of toning of the paper just peeping through. We'll go back and we'll put lots more snow on there and sort of get some more detail in the front there. But for the time being, as I say, just wanted to give myself a feel of what's going on behind them. Okay, so now you're seeing me coming in with my very darkest value here, chosen a very deep dark, I think it's a infamous Terry Ledward plant, which I'm putting in all those really darkest areas, those that I can see on the picture. What I want to do is I'd like to make it a little bit more interesting than just sort of solid, navy blue or black and things, which is why in any area I usually put a couple of different values down. And as you see at the moment, I'm now going over that darkest area with a very dark blue. Now this is just a sort of tone up from my darkest value, but I'm just putting it over there so that when I rub that in, as you can see now, it's going to give me a couple of different colours going on in there, so it's a little bit more interesting. And what you're seeing me doing now is I'm using my my little DIY paintbrush here, which has got little stiff bristles on. Find this really helpful when I'm sort of want a little bit more direction. I want to push that pastel into the paper, just to give me, to set it in. We're going to be putting obviously the snow on top of this, and I'd like that dark colour kind of set into the paper to begin with. Then that's going to give me a base to work upon. And I'm using my brush literally just to rub that in, push that into the paper. Now, obviously, if you haven't got a little brush like this, and mine is nearly at its end, you can use perhaps a paper torsion or something like that, but perhaps something a little bit firmer than sponge there, so that you can be a bit more direction, a bit more, have a little bit more accuracy when you're rubbing it in there. So now what you're seeing me doing is going into the sort of like the next lightest up areas, and I've used the blue that I used the last time round. I've used that as the base, and what I'm doing is again going to use two different colours in this sort of section, using this blue to start me off, and then I'll come up the value scale a little bit and use a slightly lighter blue. So I'm using this dark blue was the top of the last coat, and it's the bottom of this layer. Or these sections, and in that way, that's going to give us a little bit more variation, a little bit more interest in that dark colour. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm literally going to be pushing that into the paper again, just as I've done before. And I'm just looking at my reference photo. As I say, I want this to be fairly realistic, so I'm following the reference photo quite closely. To see where the shadows are, what's lighter than each other. And as you can see now, I've rubbed in that front leg. You can see that there's a difference now between that front leg and the back leg, and that's what I wanted to do. So that obviously, we're giving that feeling of sort of these are three-dimensional little figures here. Now I thought these were a couple of lads actually, but when I actually popped my painting up on Paint My Photo, the photographer said it was a mummy and her son. So a tiny little mummy in the front there, and apologies for calling you a little lad, but I can't see your face, so please forgive me. But I just love this scene. Just they were having such fun, just sliding down the hill. Took me back to being a kid myself and really enjoyed it. So as you saw, rubbing in that layer as I did there, and now I'm just popping into his the little lad at the back's little face there, using a couple of different pencils there to help me do that. Trying to sort of like create his little nose there, the shadowing behind his nose and things like that. Not being hugely particular, but I do want it to feel like a little face there, not just a blob, as they are fairly sort of close up to us. But as I say, always you don't need to use pencils, but obviously that's a tiny little space in there if you're only doing an 8x10. So you're going to need to be quite handy with your pastels, but use a couple of different values. There's sort of peachy pinks that I've used in there, and a little light cream. So what I'm doing now is, now I've sort of got that first layer all rubbed in. I think, yep, okay, happy with that. That's all kind of rubbed in. I'm now coming back and using that sort of my darkest of the blues, and I'm just going over all of those areas. And basically what I'm doing is laying the fresh pastel over the top. And as you can see, it's got so much richness and depth. This is the beauty of pastels. And this is why, you want to rub in your first layers to get those pushed in, but then you want this lovely, the pastels are made up of these gorgeous little crystals of colour, and when you put those on the top, they're so rich, it's inherent to pastels. So rub in your first layer, but as you start, as you work through your painting, try and rub in less and less, so that you've got the beauty of those pastels just sort of like shining through there. So basically going over those darkest areas, re-establishing those, putting that fresh pastel in on the top. And as I say, paying attention to my reference photo, where those shadows are hitting, and, you know, where those darkest areas are. As I always say, you know, paying attention, if you're using a reference photo, pay attention to where those levels of light and dark are. That's you know, your values. That's your friend, you know, and that will really help you to create something that sort of feels three-dimensional and has some depth to it. So they're not just little flat figures there. So as you can see, coming with that slightly lighter blue now and putting that on the top again. You know, on those slightly lighter areas, and as you can see again, the richness is coming through of those pastels. It looks so different from the you know, the pastel that you rub in. So, you know, do bear that in mind as you come through your painting. Blend less and less so that you get the beauty of those pastels. And you're going to see me coming in a moment with a pencil to do my blending and tidying up, you know, and then I'm adding more pastel rather than sort of crushing it. But anyway, I'll let you watch this little bit as I sort of finish off these little figures, and I'll pop back in a mo. So as you can see, sort of going around using my pastel pencil, sometimes it's a blending tool, you know, on its side, and sometimes as you're seeing me doing there on the glove, oh, excuse me, on the glove, just sort of using it on the tip, but just trying to give myself an indication on that glove, you know, where those little dark areas are, you know, so to give me a base for that snow to go on the top. And now I'm putting in these lovely little cuffs. I decided to make you know, mummy and son the same, you know, with little matching jackets, so that we're going to get a nice little dance of pop of bright colour. So the first thing you see me doing is coming in with the darker aqua, and then I'm coming in with a slightly lighter tone. Again, looking at my reference photo so that I can get a couple of different values going on there, and looking where the darkest areas in those cuffs and things are. But I love the little dance of sort of the trio of little cuffs there, sort of helping us lead us through the picture, just sort of dancing along there. So that's what I've sort of just giving myself a base there. As I say, we're going to pop back in and pop some snow on that. But just using those two little different colours of aqua there, just to give us that nice little pop. And so now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be coming in and starting to put some snow. We've sort of got a bit of an indication of a greyed out background there, where I've pushed the pastel into the paper and let it sort of go into those areas a little bit. But before I put the snow on, just going to, as I can see, just popping into those gloves there. Just forgot about the glove there. So just popping a bit in there. And now I'm using the lightest tone of the aqua that I just have, which I'm going to use as the base for my snow on these little figures. Now I'm starting off with Mummy in the foreground there, and as I say, using that aqua, and then we'll come up the value scale a little bit more and use some of that lilac on that. But underneath, getting that aqua underneath, in all those areas that I can see that the snow is settling and things, again, paying attention to my reference photo, looking at where it is. Now I want to feel as if, there is some sort of a little bit of snow misting past these, and these are sort of going against the wind. So I'm paying attention to the direction that I'm putting down my strokes. And as you can see, in some places I've sort of done it, putting my strokes down in little dabby bits, other times little strokes, directional strokes, sometimes more sort of blended in, just depending on where I am, and all the time popping back in with my pencils just to neaten up. Again, not necessary, you can do that, neaten up with your soft pastels. It's just that they're chunky, so I just find it easier just to get pop it. If I've got the pencil there, I'll just pop in and sort of neaten things up with my pencil. It just makes life a lot easier. So I think I'm sort of pretty much there with that base of the snow for Mummy at the front there. You just saw me, I pop back between the figures and the background, always constantly refining and neatening up as I go. And I do this, as I see it, really. We're going to go back into that background, as I mentioned earlier. But I just as well tidy it up. If I see something that's sort of gone adrift, I'll just tidy it up as I go. And now you're seeing me coming in with sort of that very pale lilac that I used in the background snow there. And I'm starting to build up the depth of this snow that's on the figures there and sort of behind the figures. Just trying to, and as you can see, popping that on top of that very pale aqua, it's just starting to bring up a little bit of depth. Every now and again popping in with a white pencil, just to help me, again, just smooth off and things. But trying to look at where the snow is heaviest and where it's just kind of misting over them. Once, as you can see, putting on that lighter colour there, it's starting to build up. So you're going to see me just sort of going through and just building that up and trying to get a little bit of depth in there and neatening up, as I say, as I go along. All right, so I'll let you watch this sort of like snow come together on Mummy at the front here, and I'll pop back in a mo. So as you can see, that snow on those figures is, has built up quite nicely, just using those couple of different values there. And, using my pastels in different pressures. Where it's thicker, I'm pushing it down, getting a little bit more pastel on there. And obviously where it's sort of like scooping across, keeping my touch very, very light. Now, as I said, I want to give a feeling of the wind and the, sort of going against these. So you're seeing me now I'm just going to be coming in and I'm putting a little bit, few more directional strokes in to give us here we go, to give us that feeling that some of that snow is sort of coming across, going out from my background across the figures, being very careful, you know, as I go, trying to get the feeling of the, you know, of that snow blowing past them. We're going to use that little trick of sort of scattering some snow on them in a moment. But what I want to do now is, I'm pretty happy with the figures. I feel as if they're, you know, they're pretty much there now. So what I'm doing now is I'm coming into my background. We're going to add a little bit more snow there. Now, as I say, we haven't got or I didn't say actually, but we haven't got obviously a horizon line in this particular scene. You know, it's all snow behind them. So, you know, this can be a little bit tricky to give a feeling of depth. So the thing to bear in mind with, you know, when you're doing this, if you haven't got a horizon and you don't want to feel as if it's sort of like just a blanket coming down over the top of them, use your slightly cooler colours towards the back and warm up as you come towards the front. In the front here, I've used that sort of pinky mauvey and a soft warm grey, and also I've used a very pale lilac and a sort of pale pink in the front here. And in the front here is going to be more textured, and the background's more, you know, smoother. So if you, and I'm not taking the pink to the background, I'm just leaving the background in those sort of aqua colours, and I'm keeping the sort of detailing in the background very, very subtle, you know, pretty much as it was. I'm adding that texture to the foreground, and that's helping, giving that feeling, as I say, of depth, which is challenging when you don't have a horizon line to play with. But if you know, keep you further away from you, more out of focus, you know, softer, and cooler in its colour, and as you come forward you can add a little bit more texture, a little bit more detail, and then you're going to get that feeling. Now, using my little trick here now, as you can see, turn my board on a 45-degree angle there just to help me with that direction of that snow. So just doing my last little few finishing bits here. I'm pretty happy with this. It was a great fun painting to do. Obviously you've seen it in speeded up, super speedy version here, where I try and give you as much information as I can in a nutshell. But obviously if you'd like to see the full version where I slow down and you know, talk you through in a lot more detail as to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, please consider joining me over on Patreon. I'd love to see you over there. It would be it's you know, build out quite a few video references over there, which hopefully is going to help you on your own pasteling journey. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do give me a thumbs up, and if you can, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. It'll help me grow and help me bring more videos to you over here on YouTube. In the meantime, if you've got any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments below for me. I'm always happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me. I wish you a lovely week, and if you get a chance, happy painting.